At the company meeting, my wife's father, the CEO, looked me dead in the eye and said in that icy tone of his, "We're letting you go. Performance issues." No warning, no discussion, just the corporate version of a cold goodbye. When I got home, my wife didn't even pretend to care. She handed me a folded paper, a list of homeless shelters, and said, "Now that you don't have a job, I don't need you anymore." I didn't argue, I just walked out quietly. A few days later, they both called me, her and her father, 164 times. After they discovered who I really was, well, let's just say the silence that hangs in a corporate boardroom after someone loses their paycheck felt like a funeral. That's the silence I heard that morning when I walked in, 15 minutes early, because being punctual was the last trace of professionalism I had left. The place looked like someone had designed it around emotional frostbite. The mahogany conference table was polished to a mirror shine. The chrome chairs creaked just enough to remind you that comfort was reserved for people who mattered. The air conditioner was set permanently to Arctic betrayal. I took my usual seat near the middle, humble, polite, pretending I wasn't married to the CEO's daughter, still showing up even when every meeting felt like a velvet-lined trap. At the head of the table sat Gregory Whitmore, founder, CEO, and self-proclaimed god of Whitmore Systems. The kind of man whose presence sucked the life out of a room. Beside him was Tracy from HR, whose energy could rival a beige wall and the sound of dial-up internet combined, and two board members who looked like they'd faked their deaths to avoid another one of these meetings. I sat, nodded politely, and waited for the ambush. "Evan," Gregory began, voice smoother than a tax audit. "Thank you for joining us." "My pleasure, Greg," I replied. Nothing like being cornered before breakfast. He shuffled papers, dramatic flair, since men like him think rustling documents equals authority. Then he flashed that rehearsed smile that looked like it needed physical therapy. "We've gone through your department's performance," he continued, "and unfortunately, it hasn't met expectations." That was rich. My department had stopped 3 cyberattacks, boosted system efficiency by 41%, and polished their reports enough to keep Gregory's yacht fantasies afloat. But sure, performance issues. I wanted to laugh, but with Tracy present, who treated joy like a disciplinary offense, I stayed calm. "Performance issues," I repeated, keeping my voice steady even though inside I was doing stand-up. "Interesting, considering last quarter's results surpassed projections by, what was it again?" "Oh right, about 1.5 miles." Gregory gave that corporate smirk rich men practice in mirrors when they think they've already won. "This isn't personal, Evan. It's business." "Ah yes, the timeless line people use before twisting the knife." He slid an envelope toward me like it was contagious. "Your termination letter, effective immediately." He used my full name, Mr. Evan Rivers, as if sentencing me. "Security will escort you out once you clear your desk. Being married to the boss's daughter gives you a unique read on a bluff." Gregory expected pleading, begging, maybe the son-in-law card. Instead I smiled, slow and unnerving. "No need," I said, standing. "I remember the way out. Right past the people I made rich." Tracy blinked. A board member coughed into his tie to hide a laugh. Gregory froze as if his internal software had crashed. I slipped the letter into my briefcase like it was my ticket to freedom and buttoned my jacket. As I walked to the door, my reflection in the glass looked calm, collected, with a faint twitch of disbelief. The feeling when you realize the people you helped climb the ladder are now kicking it away. Gregory muttered something as I reached the handle. It sounded like, "You'll regret this," but his arrogance drowned it out. Stepping out, the office felt different, like someone had turned off a tint. The interns avoided my eyes. The receptionist gave me a sympathetic, "I wish I could hug you but HR's watching, look." My ID badge felt heavier, symbolic, or irony showing up to say hello. I dropped the badge in the security tray and left through the revolving door like a man leaving a cult. The cold outside hit like freedom in disguise. For a moment I expected someone to run out yelling, "Just kidding." But there was only silence, the kind that says, "You're finally out." At home I wanted quiet, not comfort. Instead, Alyssa sat at the kitchen island like a magazine cover come to life, wrapped in silk pajamas that probably cost more than my first car. She swirled wine like she was auditioning for a commercial called Divorce, the teaser trailer. "You're home early," she said in that flat tone people use when pizza shows up before they're ready to tip. "Yeah," I said, setting my briefcase down. The company moved in a new direction. "Apparently it doesn't include me." Her head snapped up. Her eyes lit not with concern but with the excitement of someone who's been waiting for a scandal. "Wait. You got fired?" she asked, leaning forward, grin spreading like she'd been waiting for this headline all year. If love is patient and kind, this was a psychological thriller. She reached into her designer tote and slid a crisp folded paper across the marble countertop. It had the premeditated neatness of something prepared days ago. I unfolded it. A list of homeless shelters, each highlighted in pink. One circled with a scribbled note, "Free Wi-Fi." She sipped her wine, unfazed. "Now that you're unemployed," she said, "I don't need you anymore." There's a moment when you realize you're not part of a marriage but part of someone's marketing strategy. That was mine. I stared at her, trying to remember how the woman who once cried when I forgot her oat milk now looked ready to draft an eviction notice with my name on it. "You had this ready?" I asked, though it wasn't really a question. She shrugged. "Dad told me last week things weren't looking good. I figured this was coming." "Of course. Gregory, Father of the Year and Family Newswire." "So," I said with a dry laugh, "you even had time to make a list." "That's considerate. You even picked one with Wi-Fi." "Thoughtful." Her expression didn't change. "You're not funny, Evan. You've been holding me back for years. My friends are getting sponsorships, launching brands, marrying up. Meanwhile you're still playing techboy." I almost applauded. "Techboy," I repeated. "You mean the guy who's been paying for your yoga retreats, your car, and half this house your brand deals didn't cover?" "Details," she said, smirking, refilling her glass. "You should have aimed higher." I leaned on the counter. "Funny, Alyssa, you said the same thing on our wedding night. That got a glare sharp enough to cut granite." She stood, robe slipping off one shoulder rehearsedly. "You're not going to beg?" she asked, almost disappointed. "No," I said calmly. "I don't do sequels." I grabbed a duffel of essentials and headed for the door. She followed, laughing bitterly. "Where exactly are you going? You've got no job, no place. What, you think you'll stroll into the sunset like a movie hero?" I paused, looked back, and smiled. "No, Alyssa, I'm going to find peace. You should try it sometime." "You'll come crawling back," she hissed. "Probably not," I said, then nodded toward her half-finished wine. But cheers to wishful thinking. I left before she could come up with a comeback. The door clicked shut, a permanent-sounding sound. Outside, the night air hit like honesty, sharp, cold, strangely freeing. I tossed my bag into the trunk and sat behind the wheel, staring at the steering wheel as if it held answers. In the rearview mirror my reflection looked halfway between broken and reborn. Maybe both. I laughed quietly, fired by my father-in-law, dumped by my wife, handed a list of shelters. You couldn't script irony better. I turned the key, the engine purred. I didn't know where I was headed, only that I was done being their punchline. I drove aimlessly while city lights smeared past like streaks of confusion and freedom mixed together. The radio played an upbeat song out of sync with my mood. My phone buzzed twice. "Alyssa." I didn't answer. I could already picture her asking if my unemployment meant she'd have to cancel her spa appointment. Halfway home I pulled into a tiny 24-hour diner, neon flickering like it was haunted, coffee tasting like ambition gone cold. The waitress called everyone, "Hun," and refilled without asking. I ordered black coffee and a pie slice I didn't want. Because apparently that's what men do when their lives implode. As I stirred coffee, Alyssa's earlier smirk replayed. She hadn't been angry or heartbroken, she'd been pleased. The influencer wife finally free from her boring tech husband. The same woman who once called crying because she couldn't reset her Wi-Fi password. I almost pitied her, almost. The waitress refilled my cup. "You okay, hun? You look like you just lost your job and your wife in the same day." "Observant," I said. "Men who order pie at 10 p.m. usually got stories." "Yeah," I said, smirking. "Mine's called I Married My Boss's Daughter. Spoiler. It doesn't end well." She laughed. "At least you're still laughing. That's something." Underneath the chaos was relief. A strange, liberating peace that only shows up when the worst has already happened and you're still standing. I finished the pie, paid, and headed back. The dashboard clock read 11:32 p.m. My phone showed one missed call from Alyssa. I ignored it. Then an unknown number rang. Mr. Rivers, this is Carl from Widmore Systems Security. Sir, we didn't realize you still have access to the system servers. Could you, please confirm? I hung up before he finished. Oh, I still had access. And unlike Greg, I knew how much that access was worth. Leaning back, the first real smile of the night tugged at my face. They thought they'd buried me, instead they'd handed me a shovel. I started the car again, this time with purpose. The road ahead was dark, open, full of possibilities and a whisper of revenge, not loud and destructive, but quiet and calculated. Cold, or better yet, encrypted. Alyssa's shelter list sat on the passenger seat. I glanced at it, laughed, and rolled down the window, letting it slip into the night. If she thought I was homeless, she'd forgotten who built the house in the first place. Leaving without a fight sounded noble, until you pack a duffel with the calm of deleting a breakup playlist. I didn't throw, shout, or smash her wine glasses. I left, silent, steady, inconveniently dignified. Inside, my mind fireworks, fury and freedom. When I closed that door, I felt the silence after an explosion, heavy, final, cleansing. I checked into a small apartment across town, walls that had seen things and didn't judge. Not luxurious, no marble or swan diffusers, but mine. I paid 6 months' rent in cash. Because despite Alyssa's belief, I wasn't broke. Not even close. She thought I'd be looking for a shelter with free Wi-Fi. Bless her delusional heart. Gregory probably expected me back within a week. Cute. What neither of them knew was I'd been preparing long before they planned their move. The next morning pale sunlight slipped through the blinds. I brewed cheap coffee in a dented kettle and opened my laptop. There it was, my private server. Years ago, during late-night overtime, I'd built it quietly, part backup, part insurance. I didn't know then it would be the vault of my future. Every project, prototype, and scrap of code I'd developed for Widmore, I had copies. Legally gray, maybe. Morally, the company owed me more than it paid. I found a folder labeled NEXAWARE, not an official Widmore project but something I'd developed on the side. A self-learning adaptive system that could integrate AI into mid-tier business networks without million-dollar infrastructure. A revolution for small business tech. And I owned every line. That folder had been my secret hobby, a quiet rebellion. Now it was my lifeline. I spent days refining code, drinking too much coffee, sleeping little. My laptop became my confessional. The city kept spinning while I rewrote my future in binary. By day 5 I'd registered Nexaware Technologies LLC. Domain bought. Website up. Prototype uploaded. It felt like pressing restart on my life. That night on LinkedIn I saw Greg's smug post. Proud to announce Widmore Systems is entering a new phase of AI integration. Stay tuned for exciting updates. Comments full of congratulations. I almost felt bad. Almost. Because I knew what came next. I messaged one of Widmore's top investors, Victor Lang, a man who'd once cornered me at a summit complaining about slow innovation. Hi Victor. I believe I have something that might interest you. Faster, cheaper, and more secure than Widmore's upcoming system. No corporate bloat, just results. I attached my demo and hit send. 5 minutes later my phone buzzed. Can you meet tomorrow? 10 a.m. My office. Victor didn't waste time. Neither did I. I showed up wearing the same shirt from my firing day, not from nostalgia but because it felt poetic. His office overlooked the skyline. He extended a hand. Mr. Rivers, I watched your demo. Impressive. Widmore's trying to sell us a weaker version for triple the price. What are you offering? I smiled, calm and measured. Partnership. I build. You back. Split profits 50-50. He didn't hesitate. Deal. Just like that, Nexaware was no longer a dream, it was a declaration. When I walked out I felt invincible. That night Alyssa called. Her tone was syrupy. She smelled success. Hey, I've been thinking. Maybe we could talk. I miss you. I almost laughed. Sure, I said smoothly. Let's talk soon. I hung up and looked out the window. Neon lights reflecting on the glass. She didn't know it yet, but when we talked next it wouldn't be about love. It would be about legacy. While she and her father thought they'd written my ending, I'd already started drafting my sequel, in code, cash, and quiet revenge.